Thank you so much for staying with us here on the set of It's Time. Again, I'm OS, striving to bring you the best. From the Department of English, as I mentioned, here at the FAMU College of Arts and Sciences, the keystone of the academy. And talking with someone who was at an academy of his own, Lieutenant Garry Jones, with the the Federal Correctional Institution here in Tallahassee, Florida. And before we went to the break, Lieutenant Jones, we were talking about how persons who have lived long lives and maybe now are a part of the empty nest syndrome, if you will, what insight they must be thinking and how are they dealing from at least a standpoint of being incarcerated and depressed, how are they dealing with it?
Well, most elderly people like to stay busy.
Mm-hmm.
They like to stay in church most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Or they might go see the grandchildren. You know, the grandchildren can stop the elderly people and keep the grandkids and call their children and send the grandchildren home for holidays.
Because the kids like to wear the little T-shirt, you know, when mom and dad say no, ask the grandparents.
That's right. You know, because I was raised with my grandmother,
me too.
Jones, and she's a wonderful lady.
Yes.
And I lost my grandfather at 1970. Now there's no one home in my grandmother's household, so I can about imagine how she feels about depression. But how the children can help is what I do every week. I call my grandmother and I talk to her. It's not a week. I've been up here 6 years. It's not a week that has gone by that I haven't called and spoke to her. And sometimes speak to her two times a week.
Right, to let her know you were thinking about it.
Right, and I call her to get advice. Because see, sometimes I feel like she's holding on for me just as well as I'm holding on for her.
Mutual reciprocity.
Right, and we have family now, cause my Uncle Jay and Mavis and Denver. They go over to the house and, my grandma still loves to cook. Loves that banana.
Because they can throw down, okay?
That banana pudding is great.
Watch it.
But she still does that. And as long as you can keep in contact, constant contact.
Because communication is important for all of us. And, we might be, sitting here, Lieutenant Jones, and we're talking about immediate family as far as our small groups of persons that we encircle ourselves with. But, even persons who've arrived, who really have got it made, at least from our perspective, famous people, are you familiar with some of those statistics or speak to that?
Yes. A lot of people don't realize that, depression doesn't discriminate. So I don't care who you are.
Hello.
You can be a pastor. You can be a doctor, even psychiatrist. The people in the Bible days suffer from depression. And I'm glad you mentioned that because former Governor Child, it was documented that he suffered from depression. It wasn't no secret. And he was the governor of Florida and suffered from depression and was taking the medication called Prozac. And he wasn't ashamed at all. We just recently found out that Rose O'Donnell, the talk show host, finally came out and said she was suffering from depression.
Exactly.
Mike Tyson, man, we kind of know what
all that ear biting
suffered from depression, and he just recently gave his story on ESPN, saying that he was a sad kid growing up. You have my idol, someone like Marvin Gaye, was
what's going on,
suffering from depression. You have Phyllis Hyman, which
took her own life,
and that right then and there that bothered me because in 1983 I had an opportunity when I was staying in Washington D.C. to go see Phyllis Hyman and Mavis and Frankie Beverly.
Oh yes.
And when she came out on stage, she gave a good show.
What a presence.
Who would have known that she suffered from depression?
Okay.
Who would have known that, after all the glamour is gone, after all the, how you doing? That was good.
You have your autograph, your voices.
Right. When you get alone, who would have known? But just imagine, I don't know whether or not she was going to a psychiatrist or anything.
Because getting medication like Prozac or anything.
Right. Now that people are trying to get medication now. Back in her days, I don't think, it was more so like that taboo.
Yeah.
I don't want to let anybody know I'm depressed. They might think I'm crazy or anything of that nature.
Well, I'm glad we're taking this opportunity to get over whatever it could be that would, stifle us from making progress. And even here on campus, Lieutenant Jones, well, of course, your wife is a part of the FAMU family here in public affairs, and even in talking with my colleagues, the brochures I have here that persons may be interested in the audience, this comes right from my Center for Human Development. I got these from one of my colleagues, Dr. William Simmons, in terms of unmasking depression, seeing things in a different light, and dealing with depression, taking steps in the right direction. And since you had mentioned as far as Prozac and other kinds of medications, of course, here with our College of Pharmacy and Pharmaceutical Sciences, we have the Drug Information Center that persons may also want to contact as relates to, you know, the medications were either prescribed over the counter. Just the other day at Walgreens, I saw the sign in the window saying, you know, generic form of Prozac available. So again, to be able to recognize it, to seek help, and speaking to something else, Lieutenant Jones, that I want to ask you about, and that is back to my youth, you know, being in the classroom, the teenagers. Suicidal thoughts, is that realistic? Is sort of the opposite end of the spectrum from the elderly?
It's definitely realistic. If you think about it, 70% of the people who commit
70
suicide,
out of 100.
right, that commit suicide suffer from some type of depression. Now, you can't imagine if we can encourage people to go get help, that statistic would drop drastically.
Indeed.
I mean, if we can just encourage people, don't be ashamed about getting help.
Okay.
If you're not ready to take that first step going to a psychiatrist, don't worry about it. Go see a friend, somebody you like talking to. But this is the thing I like to talk about. Don't self-medicate yourself. And I can say this because I used to do this.
In what way?
Go out, you know, when you start feeling down and depressed, going out drinking alcohol. And
because of depressant, antidepressant, so you like opposing viewpoints here.
Right, and, you know, taking drugs because you have so many thoughts going through your mind. Now, they have the same medication that can relax you, just like you think. You know, in your mind, you thinking drinking alcohol, taking drugs of that nature will relax you. But they have the same medication out there that will relax you, and it's legal. But most people turn to alcohol and drugs because they can't deal with it. Deal with it, you know, everyday life, they can't deal with it.
And even in thinking about that, especially with you coming from that place where persons are incarcerated, I'm wondering, going back again to that clientele, how many of them are there as a result of, well, of course, being depressed at the end of their rope, a notion of hopelessness, and then they turn to illicit drugs from the street as well as that legalized drug of alcohol. And do you hear any stories of that as relates to your counseling or guidance maybe that you provide the persons at FCI?
From time to time, I speak with several inmates. Of course, I can't indulge too much information.
Right.
I speak with a lot of inmates are comfortable talking with me. So I talk with them and I listen to them. You know, even though they didn't realize I was suffering from depression. And it's sort of like I try to calm them down, just speak to them. It relaxes them.
In a soothing manner.
And especially when you have a disease and they have a disease. They don't know you have the disease, but you can talk to them and relax them and say the right things because you're suffering too, and they don't know.
Okay.
And it feels a lot better. And then you get on the phone and you call the psychiatrist and follow that up. The psychology department follows that up. And I spoke with such inmates, and they were suffering, you know, I think they suffer from depression.
Check it out.
Right, they have suicide thoughts. So the best thing, you have to follow up.
And follow through.
Yeah, you just can't talk to individuals, okay, well, I did my pep talk to him.
Do with that.
Right.
Sort of like tilling the ground and planting a seed and expecting it to just grow up.
I did my good deeds for the day.
Hello.
You know, I spoke with him.
And then, you know, Lieutenant General, that reminds us sort of like, you know, the adage that we're familiar with, you know, we are our brother's keeper, we are our sister's keeper. I mean, we really must be looking out for each other, especially in our present days. So, you know, for you to be willing to share that with us is greatly appreciated. But again, back to the teenagers, and again, getting into the holiday season, and students here at FAMU who are challenged by the rigorous academic climate and the raising of the bar in terms of them being on the dean's list, etc. What, and you're being a father yourself of children who are not teenagers or going to be teenagers, how do you really, what words of wisdom maybe, what suggestions would you offer to them maybe more specifically as they come to grips in terms of if they're having suicidal thoughts or if in fact they just feel that they can't go on any further or are thinking about turning to alcohol and drugs as a solution?
But my best solution I can give them, first you got to accept that you're suffering first. If you don't know you're suffering, it's hard for you to accept. But just speaking with you, you're talking about, you know, the kids and things of that nature.
Yes.
You know, you look like the person that individuals can come and talk to and very comfortable with.
You the psychic, Lieutenant Garry Joe.
People like yourself, you know, the personality.
Well, thank you.
You know,
so.
that's warming. Even come on your show, you made me feel relaxed.
Well, thank you.
And if you, so you got to know the signs. And I know that your students feel comfortable with you.
Okay.
And when you start seeing those signs, just have a talk with them. How you feel today? You want to go out and have a dinner. And how your grades come along? You know, is college life too much pressure?
Okay.
What is the pressure? And things of that nature. And you try to, but it's important they talk to someone they feel comfortable with. And let them know that suicide is not the way out.
Not an option.
Not the way out. And Thanksgiving and Christmas will come up every year.
Okay.
That's going to happen. You know, start trying to prepare yourself. You know, start having numbers where you can call friends. If you know that you suffer from this sleeping disorder, you know, affected disorder, and you know, this disease. Right. Start preparing yourself. But the only solution I can offer is to get help. Go to a doctor or something.
And again, here on this campus, we have help for students. The Center for Human Development can be reached at 599-3145. The College of Pharmacy, the Drug Information Center, they can be reached at 599-3301. Or to reach anybody here on FAMU's campus, typically you can call 599-3000. Well, I know that you've had some opportunities to speak in churches and maybe among other civic organizations or community groups. What has been your, I guess, the thrust of your message, or, you know, if you would just give us like a 3-point kind of bullet form of what you might share with different kinds of congregations that may be mixed in terms of gender, in terms of ethnicity, nationality, cultural background, age ranges, you know, what might be just some things that, again, you might share with your being in that public speaking role, if you will, that you shared in the past or maybe sharing in the future?
I spoke about crime about 2 years ago, you know, at a church. And
why that subject, crime?
Because working in facilities myself and seeing people being incarcerated and realizing that people make mistakes. And it's our kids, it's our own kids getting in trouble. And they're constantly going to drugs and feeling like they don't have a way out. So I started, and I also be talking to the parents and tell them what they expect from the kids. Because, you know, a long time ago, it used to be, if we say anything wrong, we get popped.
Okay, bam.
Right, you got some kids right now run the house.
Grow back a nub.
Right, and if you can, as a parent, if you can, you know, tell
be a parent.
Yes, your kids allow you to be a parent.
No, if you be a parent, you know, Lieutenant Joe.
If you be a parent,
you got to be.
You know,
who's raising who?
And don't fear the social service coming after you.
All right now.
You raise your child.
Call the social services on your child.
Right, and you discipline your child. Because I discipline my children just like I was disciplining coming up.
Because we don't want to see our generation excellent, our generation exceptional, our generation extraordinaire at the Florida Correctional Institution, at least in terms of being inmates in that position.
But another subject I want to talk about, I know the time is getting short. I just wanted to point out a couple of signs.